Hey friends, Andrea here. Welcome to Karchermakes. This is the place where I like to share all the crafty things I'm up to. That's almost always knitting. Sometimes it's crochet, spinning, weaving, sewing. If it's crafty, I love it, and I hope you love it here too. Let's get into it. So we can start with what I'm wearing. This is my Jethro cardigan. The pattern is by Tanis Lavelli, and I chose to make this out of a lot of my fingering weight sock scraps that I held together and crocheted all of these little scrappy squares and put it together with this gray yarn that I dyed myself. And the cardigan is amazing. I've talked about this in several other videos. You can take a look at the knitting playlist here on the channel if you want to see more about my process of making this. It's been quite comfy and cozy this spring. The weather has been very abnormal here. It's been days that have been 65, 70, and then we had a stretch this week where it was 94 degrees for like 3 days straight, and now it's back in the 60s. So today is definitely a day where I could put this little cardigan on and stay a little warm. So it's been a minute since I've given you any updates on what I've been working on. The last video that I shared here was all about Maryland sheep and wool, and thank you for everyone who watched that. I really enjoy making those vloggy type videos, and especially with Maryland sheep and wool, where there's just so many cute animals to share, and then just sharing some of the things that I picked up there was really fun too. So this episode is just gonna be about catching up on all the things I've been working on. I have several almost finished whips. They are so close to being done. I just need to push them over the line, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later in this video. But before we really start talking about the whips, let me just share with you, I do have a finished object. Just one. It's finished, and I love them. So these are the BF's finished fingerless mitts with the little flip top cover. These are based on the Clive gloves by Sue Haworth, and the Clive gloves are just a normal fingered glove. And what I did was I modified it to be fingerless and then added this little flip top situation so that he could then cover his fingers and keep them warm while he's outside. And I don't recall the person who mentioned this, but when I last talked about these, I mentioned that I needed to find a pattern that covered this like flip top and how to attach it and do all of this piece. And someone recommended a video, and if I can find it, I'm going to link it down in the description box below. That video was so helpful because I could not figure out how to correctly do this pickup without it. My brain doesn't work in 3D, so I really needed the assistance to understand, okay, how does this pickup need to work so that the flap flips the correct way over the fingers. So like I said, I'll post that down below in the description box, but these are all completed. I did add a little I-cord loop to hook this to the buttons so that when he's wearing these with the fingers out, it doesn't get in the way and it stays kind of secured. And these are just some vintage buttons from my mother's collection. Nothing super fancy or expensive, but I thought the color matched quite well with these. And the yarn on these, this is a DK merino nylon that I dyed. I think these were the ones that it was originally a lighter green that I didn't really care for, so I dyed over it with this like avocado kind of olivey green color. And I love how these turned out. The fit is really nice. I like that the thumb is ribbed so that it does give a little bit of extra flexibility, give movement, and it doesn't make the range of motion too tight. So these are great. And again, this is based on the Clive gloves from Suhowarth. So these are my only finished object in the past, has to be at least a month now. My works in progress, which you're gonna see next, have just really been time consuming just due to the nature of the project. So let's just get into them now. And I'm gonna start with the Bubble Cardigan by Stephen West. So if you're new here and you haven't seen me talk about this at least probably 10 times now, this is the Bubble Cardigan by Stephen West. The yarn is an advent from 2024 by Frogget Yarns. And the theme of the advent was called Watercolor Winter. And it was just this really pretty rainbow sort of fade gradient situation. And this has to be probably my most favorite advent I've ever gotten. I've been getting advents for close to 10 years now, and this is probably my favorite. And it's fingering weight yarn, 75/25 superwash merino nylon. And I think the last time I showed this, I was still on the sleeves, but I've since finished that. I finished both sleeves, both cuffs. I did not do the cuff to the measurement of the pattern. I think the pattern called for 4-inch cuffs, and that's just way too much for me. So I just did like a 3-inch, I don't even think this is 3 inches, maybe 2 3/4 inch cuff, 2x2, and then I did do the I-cord bind off that the pattern recommended. And now here's where I'm at. So the pickup for the front is a lot of stitches. It is a lot of stitches. And again, it calls for a pretty wide band and collar, and it's all one piece. The collar goes all the way from one hem, up the band, across the neck, and then back down the other side of the front. And it's a shawl collar type construction, which means I will very soon be starting the short rows. And again, just like with the cuffs and then even the hem called for a 4-inch hem, and I'm not doing that either. I just did a couple inches there. So it calls for doing 3 inches of this 2x2 rib before you start the short rows for the shawl collar piece. I may just start them sooner because, again, I don't need it to be that wide, and I want it to be kind of shorter, similar to the cuffs and the hem. So this is where I'm at on this beast, and I've been working on this since December, and a fingering weight cardigan is kind of a big undertaking for me. I am quite a slow knitter, and this has just been a lot of work. The stitch pattern is simple, but it is time consuming, and I do love how this is turning out. I think it's very pretty. So there is the bubble cardigan. Hopefully the next time you all see this, it will be finished. That is my goal. My goal is to finish this before the next regular sit-down episode of this podcast. We will see if that happens. So next up is my Prospect Tee by Tori Yu. And This yarn is from Super Glow Fiber. It's the Hollow collection, and the colorway is called Bubble Veil, and it is this very pretty sort of lilac-y purple with different colored speckles throughout, blue, pink, yellow, green, and I just think it's really pretty. And it happens to be on the silk sock base, which is, I'm pretty sure, I have the tag here, it is 50% silk, 50% merino, and it is really, really pretty. I really like how this is turning out. So I just finished the hem, and it's a very short hem. It only called for 6 repeats of the ribbing, which was nice and fairly quick for me. So next up, I just got to pick up the around the neck and then the sleeves. I'm not sure how far the sleeves go on this. I need to look ahead in the pattern and find out, but I'm pretty sure they're fairly short, like almost like a cap sleeve, but we shall see. But there is that. Now, I was supposed to be making this for the Charm City Unicorns Tees and Tanks now. Obviously, it did not get done in time. That was May 1st, and here we are, almost Memorial Day. So it didn't get done in time, but I still love it, and I still had fun knitting along with everybody. So next knitting whip that has had a significant amount of progress on it since the last time you've seen it, my holidays sock. And this yarn is from Fiber Nymph Dye Works. It is a very vintage colorway. It still had the old tag on it, but it's this self-striping. It's red, it's green, and then it has these like little pink rainbow confetti pops, which I think is super, super fun. And I've made these kind of longer than I normally do socks. Normally I do about a 6-inch cuff. Not a 6-inch cuff, a 6-inch leg, including the cuff. I've made these slightly longer, just to kind of change it up and use up some more of the yarn. Because when I make socks out of 100-gram skein, I wear a size US Women's 7. I have a significant amount of yarn left over, so I figure if I just do a little bit more in the leg, that's a little bit more yarn being used in the sock and a little less that I have left over. But these have been really fun to work on, really easy. It's just a vanilla stockinette stitch pattern, nothing fancy. Heel flap, it's a slip stitch heel flap that has the little garter edges on it, which I think fits my high arch feet quite well. And I'm just doing the foot. So the heel is out of cesium yarn. This is the colorway Quit Buggin' Me, which is this really pretty kind of green, super speckly color. And then my stitch marker, which is this little cassette tape. How fun is that? Who remembers cassette tapes? Who doesn't remember cassette tapes? Maybe that's a better question. But it's this little cassette tape that I got with my woolen vinyl advent this past year. It's super fun. So there's the progress on my sock, and these aren't really a priority for me. My priority for me has been the 2 garments, the Prospect Tee by Tori Yu that I showed, and then the bubble cardigan. I really just want to get those done, but this will get done when it gets done. It's not a big deal. It's not a priority. So this past week, I decided to get my crochet hook back out, and something that I've just slowly been working on over time has been Battenberg squares. Obviously, I use a lot of fingering weight yarn, and like I just mentioned about the socks, I have a lot of leftovers, so for the past, I don't know, it's had to be at least 5 years now, probably close to that. I feel like this definitely predated the Panakuchen, so I've been making all these tiny little squares. It's based on the Battenberg square blanket. I don't even know if this is going to be a blanket, but this past week I dug out some some of my little leftovers, and I just felt like making some squares. Do you ever get in a mood where you just feel like you want to crochet something, and these take maybe 15 minutes to make a square? Again, I'm slow. Most people could probably do them much faster. But I pulled these out. These were my Super Glow socks from last year, from Sock Week, Nitty Natty's Sock Week. These were my Super Glow yarn leftovers. So I've just slowly been making these. I probably have close to 200 of these squares now. And like I said, I don't know what they're going to become. Maybe they become a blanket, or maybe they become another end times cardigan. Is that crazy? Is that insane? Because I mean, the square is slightly bigger than the squares of that cardigan, but like the layout of that cardigan could absolutely work for any type of squares. I would just have to adjust like the sizing a little bit. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Should these just become the blanket and I stick to the script, or should I completely go off the rails and make another end times cardigan out of these? Tell me what you think. So those are all my active whips that are yarn based. I do have inactive whips that they're hibernating, they're taking a break, they're in timeout. But I do have an active whip that is a quilt, and I think I've only shown this once on here, but I have two little Yorkies. They go to the groomers every 6 to 8 weeks, and they always get sent home with like a strip of fabric. It's like a triangle piece of fabric, like a bandana around their neck, and they look so cute. But I started accumulating all of these bandanas. So what I decided to do was to cut them up and make them a little quilt out of them. Now I have kind of gone into my stash a little bit. I also have a fabric stash. I love charm packs. Can we just talk about that for a second? I love all of the variety that you get in a charm pack. And a charm pack is just pre-cut squares of a given collection that are 5 inches. And it's a very versatile size, at least for what I like to do with them. So I started cutting up all of these bandanas, and I am foundation paper piecing them into a quilt. So I've gotten all of the squares done at this point. I don't remember what the number of squares is exactly. I think it's close to 80, maybe 75 squares. And I've just cut them up, and then I'm foundation paper piecing them. And I'm using 2 different foundation papers. I'm using an economy block, which is basically a square and a square that has an extra round of triangles on it. And then I'm using a log cabin block. And the log cabin ones are a little bit more time consuming just because there's more pieces to it. But I've been cutting them up, I've been making these squares, and now I'm finally to the point where I'm sewing them together. And I'm doing chain piecing for the second time, and I realize now the mistake that I've made. So I'm chain piecing these this way and then sewing the rows together, but I should have done it like in columns and then done the rows this way, and it would have probably been a lot faster. But this is the first kind of set, the 2 rows, and then here's the second one, 2 rows. And then I also have 5 more to sew together, and then I need to sew each of these kind of units together to make the top, and then at some point actually get the batting, the backing, and then quilt it. I will be quilting it on my regular domestic sewing machine. I'm not planning on taking it to a long armor or anything like that. Maybe the next quilt that I do, which I want to make for us, I'll have that long armed depending on how it turns out. I just don't want to spend a lot of money on long arm quilting for something for the dogs, because they're going to use this 100%. So I thought this was cute. This has been really fun to work on and learn more about sewing and quilting and that kind of stuff. So let's talk your local yarn store day. Now, local yarn store day was actually the last Saturday in April, And I could have included this as part of the Maryland Sheep and Wool video because it was the week before Maryland Sheep and Wool. I just didn't think about it and I forgot all about it until after the fact. So let me just give a little chat about it and I'll share my little baby haul here with you. So local yarn store day, like I said, it's usually the last Saturday in April, and I went to my local yarn store, which is You and Me in York, Pennsylvania. They have a really good selection of local dyers, hand-dyed yarn, and then also commercial yarn. And they carry everything from the spectrum, from like, you know, the super unique hand-dyed to the more commercial, even acrylic. So I like that they have a variety, and I like that it's not too far away. It's very close by for me, and the vibe of the store is very friendly. So I went and hung out with them. I worked on my sock here while I was hanging out. And of course, I wanted to get the Casa Pinka pattern this year, which was called Colossal Fluff Up. And I ended up choosing two skeins from Thirsty Cat Designs. This one here is called Darkness, and it's just like a kind of charcoal gray color, and then this one is called Tea Rose, and I don't think the camera is doing it justice. It's a very sort of pale lilac-y pinkish mauve color, but it is really pretty. And then of course Joan, the owner of the shop, makes little stitch markers, and I got this little fox. I thought he was cute. So these are the two that I got. They may end up becoming that shawl, or they may end up becoming something else. They may get incorporated into a sweater. I don't know yet. We will see. But there's the Thirsty Cat Designs yarn. And as far as like the content, this is superwash merino nylon base. Additionally, while I was sitting there hanging out, they have a lot of samples there. And that's another thing that I really like. I like seeing samples. I like being inspired by other people's work. And Joan was making dishcloths, and some of them were knitted and then some of them were crocheted. So I was kind of looking at them, and I have a lot of the like Lillian Cream cotton yarn, and quite frankly, I don't love working with it. It's not my favorite thing in the world. But these dishcloths were like really soft, and I was like, okay, what yarn is this? And Joan told me that it's Queensland cotton. There's a whole rack of it in the back. Go look at it. So of course I did. This is the Queensland Collection Coastal Cotton. This one's called Ocean Mist because I think it's like more speckly. And the colorway is called Greens Pool. But this is 100% cotton, but it's not like that stiff cotton like the Lillian Cream stuff that I normally just get at the Walmart. This is really, really nice, really soft, and this would make a really good baby blanket, I think. Maybe that becomes something that happens at some point in my life too. But I got this one, which is more of a speckle, and then I got this one, which is kind of Kelly green color called Field Day. And I'm gonna probably just knit up some dishcloths to give to the BF's daughter for their new little house. They like using dishcloths. So there's that. So that's all the catching up I have to do on all of my almost finished whips and my little haul from local yarn store day. Now, the next week I am going to be off of work. I took a week of PTO, and I'm calling it my Craftcation. So what is a Craftcation? It's where I take a vacation. I stay home. It's kind of like a staycation, but I use the time to work on whatever I want to work on. I don't really worry about my chores, my errands. I try not to be burdened by real life during my Craftation weeks, and I just want to work on what I want to work on when I want to work on it. So here's my goals. First goal is going to be, I have a spin on my wheel. It is Sunset Fiber Company, and I can maybe insert a picture of it here. I want to finish this spin. I mentioned in my Maryland Sheep and Wool video that I got the dataless e-spinner, the Starling, and I really want to start a spin on that, but I need to finish this first. So that is going to get done. 100%. That is my Craftation priority. Other priorities during this week is going to be perhaps finishing my prospect tee. Because again, I'm so close. I just need to do like the edging around the neck and then the sleeves. Like that shouldn't really take too much time. I'm hoping to get this finished. And then my third priority is to perhaps finally finish this cardigan as well. And if that happens, one, I'm going to be ecstatic. But two, then I can start thinking about what I want to make next. I have probably 3 or 4 patterns that I'm just itching to cast on. I don't want to do them all at once because then it's just going to take forever to get done. But I need to like finish these, clear my crafty palette, and then decide what's next. And maybe that becomes something we talk about too. So what I'm going to do is try to share another video from my Craftation week, what I'm working on, what I'm deciding to finish, what I do finish, if anything. And I just want to bring you along. Maybe that becomes a vlog that I share here in the coming weeks. So if you think you might be interested in that, give this video a like, subscribe for more so you don't miss that video. That's it for this time. I will see you next time, and until then, happy making.